Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 10 of Jays Banter, your weekly voice of reason for the Toronto Blue Jays, and I have a feeling you might need it this week. Blue Jays with 5 independent trades at the deadline. We're going to go through all, but before we do, I'd like to welcome in my co-host of this podcast, Mo. Mo, how was your week?
It's been pretty good. Trade deadline's been pretty busy, but all in all, we're here now and excited to get ready with the show.
So, before we start going right into all the trades that the Blue Jays made, and there were 5 independent ones, which we'll mention all. We're going to talk about the splasher, the big trade that was announced, I believe, Sunday, just, an hour after the Blue Jays blew that 8-1 lead to the Rays. Marcus Stroman headed to New York, and not the New York you and I thought, not the New York Yankees. He's going to the Mets, and he's going there for a couple pitching prospects, which we'll go through in a bit. They got Anthony Kay, 24-year-old lefty who's currently in AAA. He's a 3-pitch pitcher who projects to be a back-end starter. Was currently the Mets' top pitching prospect and number 4 overall in their system. They also got 18-year-old fireballer Simeon Woods Richardson, who's a high-upside pitcher. That's an advanced 8 currently. He projects to arrive in the big leagues no sooner than 2021 and was currently the Mets' 6th best prospect and 3rd best pitching prospect. However, I think a big turnoff to this trade was that neither of them are currently in the top 100 prospects. But we'll debate about how much that really means in a bit. But your initial reaction, Mo, what are your thoughts on the trade when it happened? And as you sort of digested it a bit, how do you feel about it today?
So my initial reaction, when Stroman got traded to the Mets, I was like, alright, this is a surprise team. I kind of didn't blink into the rumors about the Mets are interested in trading Syndergaard to the Padres and then potentially flipping that return to get Stroman. And I thought that was just smoke for the Yankees to possibly push for a run for Stroman. But then when I actually saw the official trade, I believe Jeff Passan, he broke the news, and then I saw it, and then I was like, wow, the Mets, really, because background information on the Mets, I know their farm system isn't the greatest, so I was kind of bummed out. And I believe their top 3 prospects are infielders or outfielders, and the Blue Jays certainly do not need any of those with their estimated time arrival for being past 2021. So the Blue Jays wanted MLB ready pieces for Stroman. My initial reaction when we found out that Anthony Kay and Simeon Woods Richardson, I was kind of bummed out, but looking at it now, it's not as a bad return that I've seen, as the Yankees, they were not willing to even give up Clint Frazier or Debbie Garcia for Stroman, and who knows, what if they even want to give Jonathan Loaiziga? The Twins, they certainly weren't in on Stroman as we thought they were, but then a rumor came out yesterday that they said the Blue Jays even give them a chance to match their offer. But here we are now, Anthony Kay, Simeon Woods Richardson. I'm pretty excited for the return. I believe the Jays would want Anthony Kay to turn into a Mark Burley type, but with his 3-pitch repertoire and his fastball only sits at 91, 92, they might get a Francisco Liriano type, I believe. He's 24, and he should see the major leagues by next year. He's a first-round pick in 2016, and he's really he really aced through Double-A in Binghamton. He had a 1.49 ERA, but then he went to Syracuse, and he really fought the major league ball, and he really got crushed in Triple-A. And then he did have a start in Buffalo, I believe it was 2 days ago. He did get lit up he gave up 9 hits, 3 earned runs, 6 runs for 4.2 innings pitched. Certainly some errors did rate inflate his performance, but overall I believe Anthony Kay is a safe pick for the Blue Jays, being a rotation piece next year. And then Simeon Woods Richardson, obviously he is the more high upside pick. I believe he will be I believe scouts really do love Simeon Woods Richardson, and it feels like the Blue Jays, they had their eye on these two pitchers for a long time, I believe, and that's why they ultimately chose to go with this route, because there's certainly other prospects that could be more enticing to Blue Jays, more familiar names, and not in the top 100 range, but certainly believe it looks like the Blue Jays were more higher than the industry on Anthony Kay and Simeon Woods Richardson.
I think it's safe to say that the fans, particularly not a big fan of this trade, you see on the Instagram comments, you see on Twitter. I think a big reason to that is put away the side that Marcus Stroman was a guy that fans fell in love with, a guy who really broke out this year, despite the fact that he was injured for most of last season and injured early on in his career. I think a big reason as to why fans weren't excited is because they look at these prospect pools and they see neither of these guys are currently in the top 100 prospects in the MLB, and it's sort of understandable because when you're trading for prospects, chances are you've never even heard of these guys or seen these guys pitch, so all you have to do is look at the top 100 prospects and you see that they're not there and you get a little turned off. And I don't blame fans for feeling that way, but I feel like they should take it with more of a grain of salt than they have so far, because you don't have to look too far down the road and see the top 25 prospects, top 50 prospects from 10 years ago, and a lot of those guys are names that really never ended up having much of a career in the major leagues, and most of them having just borderline big league performances, like not all-star or superstar level, despite the fact of them being top prospects. And every now and then you see guys who weren't in the top 100 prospects farther down the list that ended up being all-star level players. There's that everywhere in baseball, and you don't have to look too far down to see that happening. But it's important to note that these prospects, they're guys that Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins seem to value because they traded away Marcus Stroman for him. And a lot of people are getting mad at the fact that maybe this wasn't a good enough return, but you also have to consider that Marcus Stroman, despite the fact that he's had a great year this year, his career numbers, he's got an ERA climbing to 4, he's been hurt multiple times, including last year. Just recently, like 365 days ago, this was a guy who had an ERA close to 6, so Marcus Stroman, despite the fact that he's been really good this year, has yet to show the fact that he can be an ace consistently. He doesn't necessarily have the strikeout stuff that teams covet nowadays. So I think in terms of a return, this was more along the lines of what you probably should have expected for Stroman. I think the return that Cleveland got for Trevor Bauer, that was a bit unrealistic in Stroman's case. And even if the Jays did jump the gun early, I think you weren't going to get that much of a better haul for a guy like Marcus Stroman. So I think that's just my take on the situation. I understand fans for not being particularly happy with it, but I think this was a pretty fair trade, in my opinion, for the Blue Jays, despite that multiple fans are underwhelmed by it. And again, I don't blame them, because Marcus Stroman is a guy that fans fell in love with over the years.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the chances of Anthony Kay or Samian Woods Richardson turning into a Marcus Stroman 2019 year, it was really low, but I believe this should be a lesson for fans not to fall in love with players. It is a business at the end of the day, and you can't really rely on Stroman to really have another solid year back-to-back, because 2 years ago we saw him have a really nice 2017, and we're expecting him to take the leap and possibly have another greater year, but injury problems really derailed him last season, and he did not have a good season at all. But then he did bounce back this year, but is it safe to say he's going to have another bad year? We don't know. So for the Blue Jays case, I believe it was the right move. Fans were expecting it. We all expected Stroman to get traded. To the Mets, maybe not. If it was the Yankees, maybe it's a different story. Maybe fans are more happy that what the return they got because they're more familiar with the prospects. But I feel like it was the right move trading Stroman, and we really shouldn't fall in love with these players too much.
How much do you think the fact that the Blue Jays made this move 3 days before the deadline played a factor into this? Do you think that maybe there was a better deal out there, or what is your reaction on three days before the deadline making this move? Is it jumping the gun a little early, or what are your thoughts?
I kind of felt like they jumped the gun a little bit early because I saw the Trevor Bauer deal. You certainly said they were not going to get it, and I do agree they're not going to get anything close to what Trevor Bauer got. But I feel like if they waited for the market and they waited for, say, Trevor Bauer to get traded first, and then a market developed for Stroman now, teams are more desperate. July 31st, teams get a chance to see, oh, look, Trevor Bauer got this in return. Maybe it won't take that much, but maybe we should part with, say, a Clint Frazier, maybe even Devi Garcia for Stroman because we really need him. But I feel like even industry people, rival GMs, they were like, oh, this Stroman deal was so horrible for us because now when we want to trade Now, when we want to trade our rental pitchers or our pitchers that we want to trade, we won't get much back for them because they're the Jays and Ross Atkins. They set the market for Stroman, and that's why maybe you didn't see Zach Wheeler get moved. We didn't see Mike Minor get moved. Maybe that's the deal, but I feel like the Jays jumped the gun a bit too early, and if they played it safe, I believe they should have struck a deal Monday or close to the deadline. I believe Tuesday would have been ideal for the Jays, right before his start.
Yeah, but you also have to consider with the tide quickly turning in the MLB, with teams quickly moving from sellers to buyers in a heartbeat, and the Mets, one of those teams that are in the borderline. I think a lot of people were surprised that the Mets ended up making this trade because they were a team that was under 500 and a team that a lot of people thought could be sellers at the deadline. Maybe this trade for Simeon, Woods, Richardson, and Anthony Kay wouldn't have been available on Monday and Tuesday, and maybe what Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins were hearing from the other offers was that it would have been too big of a risk to hold out and maybe miss out on an offer that they liked. And this all ties back into the fact that it's the Blue Jays scouting team, it's the Blue Jays front office, Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins included, that are taking a gamble on this guy. Simeon Woods Richardson is, I would say, it's fair to say, the key piece coming back to Toronto in this trade, and he's a guy who, as I mentioned earlier, a few years away, but certainly a guy with a lot of upside and a guy that they're willing to take the chance on. So I think the healthy thing and the most logical thing to do is just hold on, wait, and see what these guys are before really grading these trades right away. Yeah, that's sort of what you have to do in baseball. It's not hockey where the prospect that you get back immediately makes an impact. You have to wait and see what you're going to get for these guys. And when Simeon Woods Richardson wins the 2025 Cy Young, let's see if all those people come back and apologize.
Yeah, and I have a question for you leading up to this.
Yeah.
Do you think teams are scared of the Chris Archer return last year? They were kind of scared of maybe jumping the gun and possibly trading a nice prospect, a top 50 prospect for Stroman?
Absolutely. I think seeing how that trade was kind of ridiculed in the eyes of Pittsburgh Pirates, making the trade for, we mentioned this on the podcast a week ago with James when he was on, trading Tyler Glasnow and Austin Meadows for Chris Archer last year. And don't forget, at the time, Chris Archer was a guy who had more ace stuff than Stroman is. I think Chris Archer, when he's healthy and right, I think he's a better pitcher than Marcus Stroman is because he just has more strikeout stuff that, again, teams covet that nowadays. And also, he had a lot more control than Stroman is. I think he had an extra year of control. So that doesn't help that the market was kind of set last year for guys who are in the same boat like Chris Archer is. So I think that might have played a factor in what kind of return you're going to get. So, yeah, I feel like teams certainly had that in the back of their minds when they negotiated for Marcus Stroman.
Yeah, I felt that way too. I felt like teams didn't really want to give up too much. That's why I was very surprised to see the Yankees not wanting to give up Clint Frazier. Were you?
Yeah, absolutely. Clint Frazier, we mentioned about how much we like him on this podcast. He's not really a guy who looks like he's going to make much of an impact with the Yankees because their outfield is very stacked. There's really not much of a necessity for him. So I thought Clint Frazier was a guy who would be very expendable for the Yankees in a trade for a starter because they desperately needed one. And it turns out the deadline's passed. They still don't have another starter. So that's a bit of a questionable move there. Maybe they just didn't like giving him up. But if I were the Yankees, and I'm a little biased obviously because I'm not a Yankee fan. I don't like the Yankees, and I want Clint Frazier to be a Blue Jay. But I would think Clint Frazier should have been a little more expendable for them. I think that holding on to Clint Frazier will ultimately could come back and haunt them because in the postseason when you need 3-4 guys to start, I'm not so sure the Yankees feel all that good about who they have started those games. Severino still hasn't pitched this year. Happ and Tanaka haven't been able to repeat the success they had last year, so I feel like that was a little questionable that they didn't go out and get a starter, even though Clint Frazier should have, in theory, been expendable.
Yeah, and I feel like the Jays definitely did ask for Clint Frazier, just knowing that they traded for another outfielder in Derek Fisher. And with the Jays having Anthony Alford in the minor league system, with Dolan Pompey still down there. So I believe you told me this last week that the Jays did in fact ask for Clint Frazier. Is that correct?
Say it again?
I think you did tell me last week I believe, on Instagram that the Jays did ask for Clint Fraser